Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. So today we have quite a many international participants as well. So this time we are going to go in English. And my name is Joksi Kaaja, and I'm from the Project Management Professionals Finland, the IPMA association in Finland. And today our theme is the new roles of Project Management Office or PMO in supporting change. I'm really happy that we got Reinhard Wagner one more time in our webinars, and Anna-Riikka Annis Hovitaunila from Thinking Portfolio as well. Anna-Riikka is our head of the special interest group for portfolio management, and well, most of you probably have heard or read Reinhard's articles or been participants in his webinars. So Reinhard comes from TIPA Transformation Group, and he's also the former president of IPMA and well-known expert in the field of project management and leadership. And now I'm asking Annis to take the stage, and I'll stop my share. And so
yes, good morning also on my behalf. So few words about the special interest group strategic portfolio management before we let Reinhard to go into his very interesting topic. Our special interest group is pretty active, and the okay, let's go first to the introduction so you know who I am. So I'm the chairwoman of the special interest group of strategic portfolio management, and I have been really happy that our team group, as we call it, has been really active. My name is Anna-Riikka Annis Hovitaunila, and I'm the CEO of Thinking Portfolio. And Thinking Portfolio is the leading portfolio management expert and SaaS service in Finland. So I'm really interested into this topic and especially Reinhard's presentation today, as you all probably are. So I'm not going to be long this morning, so it's a very brief presentation about the group. The most important part and the meaning and the target objective of our group is that we learn from each other. So we share the best practices, share cases in webinars and roundtables. If you want to read more about our theme group, please read the latest Projektiammattilaiset magazine. It's both online and as a physical magazine. There is a great article of our operation and our themes. Thank you for that. Projektiammattilaiset. That was really a nice article. Yes, we had a roundtable last May, and we also discussed about the PMO's future role. That was of course concerning the strategy work, and I wanted to lift it up, this kind of initiative or a conclusion of the group, what we saw that it's going to be the future role. Reinhard is going to speak about the whole change, and now we are concentrating on strategy work, but you can maybe combine these two thoughts during this webinar today. So first role, the connector, the link between management and operational level. Of course, for the efficiency of the organization, but also from the softer points of view. For example, the resourcing from the well-being point of view. It's a very important role. Management supporter and facilitator, especially from the point of view of producer of the information, provider of the conclusions especially. So both supporting the strategy process and then of course the strategy implementation. Formulator of common practices, quality controller, especially through increasing the transparency within the organization. and then a maintainer of the systems to comply the systems and the ways of working with the new strategy. And of course, this can be the role already in an organization, but depending on the maturity level of the project management's role in the organizations, also the PMO's role is developing. But these are the 6 components that we saw in the theme group that could be the future role of PMO in the strategy work. But now we are going to the topic of the morning. And we are very, very honored that we have a great guest speaker here today. So Reinhard is going to talk about the new roles of PMO in supporting change. And as Joksi said, this is the biggest theme of Projektiammattilaiset during the whole year this year. I'm not either going to read through this whole text, but I just want to lift up Reinhard's really, really long experience and huge experience within the project management, both in Germany, Finland, and other countries. So you really have experience to also compare these 2 markets together and see the things in both 2 markets. But one thing I want to lift up, Reinhard is also a great lecturer, so that's especially the thing where I'm so happy that we have you here today. Yeah, great coach and super good presenter. So I will let Dr. Reinhard Wagner to talk to us now. Please, Reinhard.
Thanks a lot and good morning from Zagreb in Croatia. Now I need to share my screen. Okay. Let's just pull the slides up. And hope you see it now.
Yes. All good.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you for the nice introduction. I'm happy to be here again for the Finnish Association, unfortunately not in the country, but now from Zagreb. And I want to talk about the combination of change management and project management, which I believe is 2 sides of the same coin. And now specifically about the potential new role of the PMO in this regard. If we look at these definitions that we find in certain standards or books and so on, we already see that the PMO is quite a diverse animal. Some definitions just talk about project management role as a function and organizational structure, like in the ISO. The ICB talks about a supporting function of a PMO, which is also relevant for project officers and other kind of officers. If you go to other standards or organizations, you come closer to what they believe is also important, that the PMO is also concerned with the change and the transformation that's going on in organizations. And while we live in times where we have a lot of change and transformation going around, that is concerned with all this digital stuff, but also political changes that we see, structural changes in our economy, in certain industry like automotive, etc. Also, the PMOs are affected by that, let's say, strategic change that is going on in markets, but also in organizations, and they need to respond to it in a way. And that's basically what I want to address here. I certainly do not have the full answer to that, but at least I can give some insights also from my experience, from our experience, what we are doing. And before we go into that, I also like to address that this PMO is also very difficult to talk about, because everyone has a different perspective on what a PMO is. So sometimes there's a mixture of PO, project office, and project management office. And to me, being involved in many standards, I think that's clearly a different thing, because a project office is for one individual project. So supporting the project manager in setting it up, in doing planning, controlling, reporting, and administration. So it's more an individual project that we are concerned with. And that's the same for the program office, where you have an individual office for an individual program, supporting the program manager. So a project management office typically is for a portfolio of projects and programs. So it's more spanning from a strategic perspective to more than one individual project. And this is why we differentiate between a project management office and a project office. Sometimes we also look into different levels of PMOs. So we have on the left here the corporate or enterprise PMO, which is very close to the board of directors or the CEO or COO or the chief project officer in the organization, so on board level. But certainly we also have more operational PMOs, which are on a divisional level, maybe in country organizations or even in departments. We will find PMOs. And some PMOs are more physical PMOs, or they are spreading virtually, especially if you have an international organization. So they are not physical in one place with people sitting in one office. They are maybe also spread around the world with kind of people taking part in the PMO setting on a part-time or virtual setting. And sometimes the PMO is just another word for a center of excellence in project management, where you have a lot to do in order to improve the way you manage projects, programs, and portfolios. And that's also a good denominator, because it means that the PMO typically is to organize the project management system in an organization and helps to develop it. But we need to be aware, actually, that there's a different, many different perspectives on this term of a PMO. Now, Anis already showed some of the roles or functions that a PMO typically has, and I'm not going into details of all this, but it starts on the top left more with the enterprise PMO, that the PMO is typically also involved to establish a project governance. So as a service provider to the governing body, which may be the board of directors, but also other kind of managers. And I've put in here the ISO 21505, which is on governance for projects, programs, and portfolios. And all these kind of policies and regulations and standards will be set into place by the PMO. So governance and management are two different things, but it means that if the governance says that the management needs to be organized in this and that way, then the PMO is very instrumental in setting the governance in place. On the very left, I think it's very clear that the PMO is typically developing and implementing and also establishing the PM standards, methods, and tools. How you manage projects and programs, what kind of tools are used for it, and so on. And typically that is together with the very right role, which is then training and coaching people in the organization to bring that standards and methods and tools to life. I think the lower part is a very interesting part, which I also like to elaborate now a little bit more, is this support function. For me, typically a PMO is a support function anyway, but it also now means that the PMO supports project managers, especially those that are new to the organization, that are not that experienced in starting projects, in planning, in monitoring and controlling, in organizing their meetings, facilitating meetings, etc., etc. I think that's the most critical role of a PMO, to help the people to utilize the standards, methods, and tools in real practice. And on the top right, you will see, I think, what is also a key role of a PMO. That's more the multi-projects or the portfolio role, that you just collect information from all the projects, bring it into dashboards, bring it up to decision to the steering committees and the sponsors to make the right decisions in that regard. So that's the portfolio role. And in some PMOs, this portfolio role is the only role they are having. In some other organizations, also the support is more emphasized. So really that depends. But my question now is, where is change management? So that's in the classical role description, you won't find change management, and that is our topic today. Now, I just picked one of the programs I'm actually involved at the moment, but I could pick many other examples. And that's a huge ERP harmonization and implementation program in the multinational organization, Scandinavian organization, by the way. Which basically has failed because they started in 2018 and now in 2024 they are still not proceeding with that SAP harmonization program. Why? It's simple, because they started it as an IT implementation. On the right you see the system integration. They have employed a system integrator, which is pushing the whole SAP thing like an IT program, but which is missing all the other parts here of this magic triangle, as I call it. And that's on the one hand, this business transformation side, where you have a target operating model, where you have a business architecture, and because IT tools are just to make this new organization, the new target operating model work. And if you don't know what the future target operating model would be, then it's very difficult to build an SAP IT program around it. So that needs to be in balance. It should be aligned. And for me, it's also a very important part of such a IT transformation program. And what was the weakest part in this whole program is the program management, what you see here on the top, because this organization never did a program of this magnitude. So they don't have standards. They don't have people with that experience in program management. They do not have a PMO or program office to run such a program. So basically, the whole coordination, the overarching, let's say, program goals, the benefits, the strategy, the planning, the governance, changed risk and integration management, the whole integration, I would say, was not in place. So this is why this whole transformation program was in troubles, or still is in troubles. So the program management role here is to orchestrate all the activities in the program. They use partly agile methodology, then also classical methodology, but it was unclear how that interrelates to each other. And at the middle, you see the key function. There's the change management. So in that program, there was a little bit a change management going on, but it was not for the purpose of the program. It was just for communicating the goals and everything to the external world. So what we also found was that the change management was not embedded in the whole system. And this is why I'm now trying to show that the PMO, or the program office here in this context, needs to orchestrate all these constituent parts of this magic triangle. So I call that the new magic triangle. And it should be in balance. So you need not only to run such a program by systems integration and systems integrators, but you also have to have a balance to the program management, to the business transformation, and in the middle of everything is this change management role. So now let's a little bit look into that change management role. And it's basically about people, because that change management is the people side of change. Okay, we want people to participate in that change, whatever it is. We not only want them to just follow someone, but also to take part, actively take part, to take responsibility, and I emphasize also accountability for their actions in that. And that also means you need to bring them into that setting. So change management basically to us is to make them also, with all their behavior and also their views and perspective, bring them into this new setting. And so you need to work very precisely with them all together to bring them on the other side of this future state, working with this new IT tool or whatever that change is about. So orchestration is, I think, something that is a very important term in project and change management, because otherwise you won't harvest those benefits in the program. And this is why it's so important really to make them change, to lead them in this change from the left to the right. And that means also you need to purposefully work with them. And what I'm now talking about is kind of ways of working here. I think you will understand that this is something the PMO could or will orchestrate in such a program. And the first thing I think in change is very much important to make them aware why there's the need for the change. Now, why do we need now to switch to SAP for HANA, and also to awake a little bit this desire for them to join this transformation. And there are many hesitations, maybe also resistance towards change. So we need to work with them and also have a dialogue and discussions. What's in it for me? That's one of the core questions they would ask. And if there's no real answer to that question, they would maybe stop collaborating. They would maybe withdraw from the change. They would still use their old IT. And that's the beginning of the failure of such a program. This is why you need really to focus on the first two letters of this ATKA, which is a methodology from ProSci. So that's the beginning of working with them. But also then in this transformation, you need to tell them and also train them what does it mean now to have this new software in place. You need to do trainings on the software, but also the new processes, the new collaboration model that you would have, to bring them up to speed into this capability that are necessary for this transformation. And that's a very important task in change management. And it also requires a lot of activities, a lot of efforts to bring them up to speed. And ability means to work with them in pilot applications and in real cases, so that they not only understand, but also see how it works and that it is easy to use. And if you have come to that point, I think then change is much easier than if you're not even aware why all that is necessary. But it also spans maybe beyond the project or program of transformation, and that is this reinforcement. Because out of experience, I think you know that if you do not continue these support activities when software is established or is implemented, then they would stop working with it, and then you fall back into the old kind of habits and old ways of working. So it's a continuous task to work on that, and this is why you need to have a certain function really working on that. And what we see, that's to be orchestrated with all the people, all the roles in such programs. And certainly it starts with the senior leaders or the executives in an organization. They need to form a sponsor coalition. They need to really be the role models for that change. They need to be pulling people into that change, not pushing them into the change. And that starts typically that the PMO needs to form this sponsor coalition and give them a space also for their communication roles and the support roles through the PMO's task. Then certainly you have the change practitioners. Those are the experts in orchestrating the change. They know the tools, the processes, and the ways of communication and information and so on. So you have sometimes certified change practitioners or at least change agents, whatever you call them. But that's necessary to help all the other people, the project teams, the line function people, the people managers, which are typically department heads and so on, and all the employees in the organization to understand why we change, what is being changed, and how this change will work. So you see, it's a huge task to move all these people in the right direction. And my argument is that the project management office, or sometimes it's then also called the change management office, is somewhere sitting here, but also linked to the senior leaders. So you can have change practitioners or change experts within the project management office, or at least attached to it. But if it's separate from the project management office, then it's quite difficult to orchestrate that whole change and transformation. And now, what needs to be done, and I'm not going through all the details here, but that is what we typically do in huge change and transformation activities. And it starts from the very left at the beginning of such a program, even before you start the program or these projects. Identify the needs of the change, because that is what you need to communicate and then to build on. We need to build a change vision and a change story. So why do we change, and what does it mean to all the people? And on the next slide, I will show you how that could be done. Governance structures, I already showed that this is part of a PMO typically, so also in that change regard. And then you run all these kind of activities from change concepts, a change plan, that you have a communication plan in place, that you have certain change tools in your toolbox, that you work with the sponsors, build that coalition. Because if there's no coalition on the executive side, it's very difficult to bring people into that change on the operational level. And that may help that you have multipliers or an ambassadors network within the organization, at least in the parts where you do that change, that you have a lot of communication activities starting from the vision and the mission for that change, and also to have, let's say, sounding buddies where you ask them about an opinion or an expert opinion, or at least some ideas what to do in that change session. And you also need to have, and that's more to the right here, the change monitoring and evaluation, which also means that you need to have clear KPIs, that you can monitor the progress of your change activity within that program, and can also implement other measures or support that. And certainly retrospectives and feedback formats are very helpful to sustain that change. And now all of that can be in the PMO, or can be in a temporary change management office. So you now see it's a different perspective now on this PMO. Now I'm calling it a change management office. But a change management office, to my view, is a temporary thing. If you run a temporary transformation or change activity, then you can orchestrate it, but you can also put it into the PMO. And then the PMO is supporting the change that is going on in multiple projects and programs in that organization. Well, now we could talk hours about all these different tools, but I'm not going into the details here. I'm just picking one as an example, and that's quite an interesting one, I believe, because that's creating a change story. because I believe that's the rationale behind the change, and people need to understand that. So what is the rationale? Why do we change? Why do we want to change? What is the rationale behind that ideas of top management or the organization? Then also you need to answer all these kind of questions here. So the why, and then the what. Do we have some guardrails? What is the principles of that change? What are the stakeholders that are affected by that change? What is what we want to achieve through that change? Very specifically also in OKRs terms, so objective and key results. And how do we do that? How do we collaborate? How do we involve others? How do we work towards the change? Maybe using agile methodology or other things. So these are key aspects that you should clarify with all the people before you start into that change. Because if you're stuck somewhere in the middle and then try to go back to revert to those questions, it's often too late, I would say. So in that IT transformation program, we did that later, and we found it's very difficult now because the people are stuck somewhere in the middle, and now to pull them out of that situation and try to bring them in answering those questions, it's very difficult for them. Now, why do we need to do change management? I think that's also a pretty relevant question. And I started with saying, okay, that change is pretty normal now, that we as PMOs are supporting this change. But also we need arguments. Why is that important? So if we have change management included into the PMO setting, we are building the capacity or the capabilities for change. It means we are prepared for the next change to come maybe in the next moment or the next year. And that's very important for organizations that are always in kind of a change situation. We were surprised with big events now during the pandemic, now during this unfortunate war and everything. But it means there may be other changes coming in the next years, so we need to be prepared, and building change capabilities in the PMO is helping to make the organization resilient and future-proof. But it also shows the way you do the change, how to design the change and involve them and so on. And that's also the aspect that's more to the right, because for them, for the employees, it's always very important that the change is done in a transparent way, that they have a say in it, that no games are played in that change and transformation, and that's typically done by communication. So a huge emphasis in change management is on communication, so that you have regular communication from the top level, and especially in times of change, I think it's important to have a high frequency of doing that, because people need always information. They always claim that they do not have enough information about what's going on, and that's building trust. And that's also showing that you want to build trust in that change. And it's also maybe reducing this potential resistance, what you see here, and a kind of an atmosphere where people can speak out loud. So I think it's very important to build all that. Now, maybe looking into the future role of the PMO, and you remember one of my first slides, I was showing the typical PMO roles. Now I'm looking a little bit forward into the future. So the PMO in that aspect of change management should be a strategic guide. It's like a navigator or strategic guidance. Because PMO can also give scenarios or looking forward, forecasting what's coming up, what kind of scenarios are relevant for the project world, and what kind of impact that change and transformation activities will have on the projects and the program world and the people involved in that. So I think they will not replace the strategic management of the organization, but they will also support the strategic management of the organization with this kind of forward-looking, the strategic guidance for the managers, but also for the people affected by that change. I'm also saying that the PMO should be a knowledge broker. Now we talked a lot more about project management and change and transformation and all these terms, methods and tools, not talking about standards, but that knowledge and the know-how that is related with that. I think it's also very important that the PMO takes that role to be the knowledge hub for all these kind of activities. And if someone has questions and needs answers, so the PMO could be the one to answer those kind of questions. Now, the key role again is the support role, what you see on the bottom, and what we increasingly now see that change management is integrated into the portfolio of activities of a PMO that may now be temporary. If you have a program, transformation program or change program going on, but it also may be on a continuous permanent basis that you have these change practitioners, change agent, change support people in the PMO that from the PMO support now individual activities like projects and programs and so on. And like Annie said, also that's very close also related to agile coaching or agile coach, agile experts, because that's used for the way of working. That's maybe also connected to the IT people like citizen developers or AI experts that work from the PMO and support projects, etc. And that may be other support roles coming. So if change is about people, I think then the PMO should also expand beyond training and coaching. And so I put here a term that's maybe not familiar yet, but that's kind of a caregiver. So caring for the staff's diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and also the well-being of the staff may be a role that the PMO needs to take care of because people are frightened. They are anxious, and all this change and transformation has effects on the psychological safety of the people. And so if you have experts that take care for the people in that situations, I think the best place for them is to be not in the HR, but in the operational PMO setting to help them to deal with all these kind of changes. And finally, again, I talked about this orchestration. The PMO will be, in the future, that role would be more important to be a corporate integrator. Integrating all these project activities from the operational level up to the strategic level, but also all these change activities, change agenda into the change activities and projects, and orchestrate decision-making on the top level, selecting the right projects and programs for that purpose and implementing it. So you see, I think it's an uplifting, it's an enriching of the PMO's role. But I would not say that every PMO needs to do that. It really depends on the context of the organization, what the organization is all about, but also what the projects and the programs are all about, which emphasis you put on these specific roles and help these people really to do that. And that's the end of my presentation. So maybe it gave some insights, what we are working on right now, what will be, let's say, also maybe relevant to you, to your PMOs. And now I'm very much open to your questions and hope there are some questions around. So we have still 15 minutes.
Yes, there are. There are. And thank you so much. I really loved the step-by-step approach that you always give. It's really concrete and interesting, even though you said yourself that you don't want to go into the details. But anyway, the way of presenting the approaches is really concrete and interesting. Yeah, we have questions in Menti, and I could start. Few of them are about the competencies. And the first one is about what competencies must the present-day PMO strengthen to become the top management change management engine? So what are the competencies in PMO that need to be strengthened?
Thank you for that question. I think it's very relevant, and I'd like to refer to the ICB-4, which you, I think, all know. And this is why in the 4.0, the ICB, the newest version, we strengthen that strategic perspective in the competence set for project, program, and portfolio managers. Because top management just speaks the language of strategy. That's their key role. And if we just answer on operational terms and perspectives, and that's a mismatch. This is why we always need also to think in strategic terms and what we contribute through the projects and the programs to the strategy implementation. And if you do a transformation program like this IT transformation program I showed you, the translation is done through these OKRs, which means objectives and key results. So we take these strategic objectives, translate them in objective for the project or the program, and the key results we want to achieve at the end of this project and program, and can monitor and control through KPIs back to the organization. And then the top manager understands, okay, they have understood and they are helping us to achieve our strategy. And also the second competence I'd like to highlight, that's the change and transformation competence in the ICB-4. And it clearly is a different, it was an innovative element of this new ICB-4, saying that every project and every program that we do has a change component in it. And that change component is related to organizational structures, it's related to organizational processes, it may be also related to organizational culture. So we need to think in structural elements, in cultural elements, in procedural elements, and not just working on some deliverables like an IT system. But what impact does that IT system have on a culture in collaboration, in customer orientation, in well-being for our staff working on it, and so on. So you see, it's more dimension than just working on an IT deliverable. It has an impact, and this is why I believe this competence should be strengthened in this change and transformation regards, because it looks into the impact of what we work on in projects and not just on the deliverables that we have.
Yeah.
Just two examples.
Yeah, very good points. Then a bit the same question but from another angle. Because the support from the top management and the line management is highly important in change. But what competencies are needed in the top management to understand that PMO is really the engine for change management?
That's good. And if we do trainings, sometimes I'm shocked that the trainings are only done for the staff, for the people working on projects. No. We need to offer trainings, coaching, information session, whatever you would call that, to the sponsor coalition, to the steer co-members, because what I find in most of the cases, they have no clue what their role in this whole orchestration is, because they are typically, in this ID transformation, they are the CFOs of the divisions or the companies. They have never done such a program. So they first need to understand, okay, what is my role now? And we have a clear role description, and we explain it point by point to them. What does that mean now to fill that role as a role model to the others? But then we also explain them and make them aware that the PMO is supporting them in all the steps. So creating that big picture, guiding them in the decisions. That is also not their role to do all the decisions, which is sometimes always the big problem, because they think they need to decide everything on an integrity base. To orchestrate also this governance, so that you have steercos, strategic steercos, operational steercos, even project steercos. And so you have a delegation of authorities to the lower level. And all of that could be done by the PMO to bring them, the managers, into the game.
Yeah, that's a very good point, that everybody thinks that the top management already knows their role in the change, but then it's important to train them too. That's a very good point. Then, at least in Finland, but I think that in other countries also, why is it still very common that the head of PMO is not in management team? What needs to be done to change that situation?
I'm not sure to know the answer, but I think the answer would be manifold, to say. One of the problems is that we put the best project managers into the shoes of a PMO head, and I think that's the first wrong decision. So in my opinion, the head of the PMO should be a senior executive to bring the perspective of the line organization into the project management world. Sure, that person should know something about project management, but we should turn that. So not the best project manager should be the PMO head. It should be one of the top managers to become PMO head. And then in general, unfortunately, project management is seen by top management often as kind of an operational kind of methodology. Just run your project, full stop. But they don't see the strategic role of projects for the change, for the transformation, for the success of the organization. But we also don't tell them, we don't speak to them in that terms. Now, when I showed them in this IT transformation program, what they lose in money and time and energy and employees, because they are frustrated and leaving the company, they woke up and say, okay, oh, it's a strategic. Yes, I said it's strategic. So the PMO needs to bring top management into this strategic way of managing projects and programs, and then they may better understand. So you see, it's both sides. It's to point fingers to the top management. We can do something about it, but we have to do it.
Yeah, to show the value.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. And then still few from Menti. Could you please give practical examples of KPI or ways of measuring success and progress of change? Just a few of them.
It is basically the adoption of certain IT processes, or whether you have the competence ready for people to work on certain processes and so on. It is also the performance of the processes now run. You can have KPIs like lead times or quality measures. So there are hundreds of KPIs, but this is why it's so difficult for me now to tell, because it really depends on your change story. And this is why in that IT transformation program, we started from the vision, then the mission, then we formulated, let's say, high-level benefits that this organization wants to achieve, in simplicity of processes. That was one thing, but also attractiveness of the processes to the employees. because if they need to work on, let's say, old-fashioned tools like Excel, it's maybe not the most attractive for Gen Y people. So they want to work with state-of-the-art stuff, and so also the attractiveness of the deliverables to the people working in the organization could be one of the KPIs.
Yeah, I especially like the attractiveness of processes, and also that the KPI is that the people really can use the program and will use, not only can use, and that leads us to the big role with the employees, so the training, coaching, and caregiver. So how do you see that PMO can effectively balance the traditional project management responsibilities with this evolving role in change management and with people?
Actually, I don't see much responsibility at the moment in classical PMOs for the employees.
But they have other responsibilities, and they are quite busy with that one. So how to balance these two needs? Yeah.
But I don't see any responsibilities at the moment in the PMOs for the people. Now, who lays the responsibility for people? Some say it's with the project manager. Some say it's still with the line managers. Some say it's with the HR. So people are lost somewhere in between. And I hate this term, somewhere in between, because that's actually the problem. So if the PMO would be that caretaker for the people, take them out of this being lost somewhere in between, it can really make them more instrumental in the project, more, let's say, capable of working in that, but also taking care for their well-being and the performance. And well-being and performance is very much interrelated. So I would say the PMO needs to fill that gap because nobody is responsible for the people in these kind of projects and programs.
Exactly. Okay, our time is running, so I will just end this also and say, of course, very big thank you to Reinhard. But I will end this with Pekka's note in the chat. He said that thank you. This is very good. Change may and should often happen as continuous top-down, bottom-up circle. And thus people whose behavior we want to change should be considered as subjects, not only as objects. And this is, I think it's very good.
That's very nice. And if you still have questions open, send them to me. I will answer them later. And also, if you want to directly have feedback and so on, just link on LinkedIn, send me your questions via LinkedIn. I will answer them later.
Yes, and thank you, really, Reinhard. This was also my pleasure. It was really, really interesting. We will end the recording